There are two things that I wish every motorcycle came with from the factory. One is blind spot monitoring. I think it'd be great to know if somebody's coming up behind me and in my blind spot. The second thing is a dash cam, because if anything bad is happening in front of me or behind me, I'd like to have it on video. INNOVV has figured out a way to combine both of these features into a single product, the RC6. It's a combination dash cam and blind spot monitor. And today in Cruiseman's Garage, we're going to install it onto this 2024 Honda Goldwing.
This video is sponsored by Cruiseman's Garage Honda Goldwing Maintenance Video Series.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Cruiseman's Garage. It's about 5:30 in the morning and I thought today is the day I'm going to install this INNOVV RC6. Now I've been talking about this for quite some time. I just haven't ever gotten around to doing it, partially because of the weather and other obligations, so today is a good day to do it. Now I've already got the bike pretty much ready for the installation. I've removed the seat, I've removed the side covers, and I've kind of scoped out how I'm going to install this. Yesterday I took the time to unbox the RC6 and just kind of take a look at all the different components. So let's go back in time and I'll show you everything that comes in the kit. I should also mention that INNOVV is not paying me to make this video. They did not sponsor the video. However, INNOVV did send a complimentary package for me to test and review. So I did not pay for this unit. I want to let you know that right up front. However, I'm under no obligation to give this product a great review. I can tell you exactly what I think of it, and I will. I'll tell you what I like about it. If there's anything I don't like about it, I'll tell you that as well. And if this is a good solution for your motorcycle. Now, I'm installing this on a Honda Goldwing, but this system can be installed on virtually any motorcycle, so take that into consideration.
The INNOVV RC6 kit includes a front-facing camera, as you can see here, but there is a connector on the back of this held in place with a couple of screws. Unfortunately, they are not captive, so you have to be careful not to lose these because you'd never find a replacement screw like that. And when you unplug this, what you'll find is it's using a USB-C connector, but there's also a slot which holds a micro SD card, and that's where, of course, all of your visual information will be recorded. The rear-facing camera is in a housing that also includes the sensor for the blind spot monitor. It's all in one nice little package, and of course the cable is built into this system. The main unit, or the DVR, and has other electronics in it, will probably mount underneath the seat in most cases. It does have a power LED, but of course you won't be able to see it if it's under the seat. And then it has all the different connections for the various other parts that go with this system. There's a left and right blind spot monitor indicator. Of course, these have to be wired into that main unit as well, and we're going to mount these up on the rear view mirror posts. For a non-Goldwing installation, you'll probably just mount these to the rear view mirrors. This is the main power harness that will connect the unit, the DVR unit, to the bike's power supply. These red and black wires can connect to your battery, and the yellow wire is for your accessory terminal. The kit comes with 3 different bags filled with all kinds of mounting hardware for various types of motorcycles. Some of these are for the front camera, others are for the rear camera and radar sensor, and I went ahead and unbagged all these and spread them out on my table. They really do give you a lot of hardware in the kit for just about any mounting application.
Today we're going to be installing this INNOVV RC6. It is a combination blind spot monitor and dash cam. It has a front and rear camera. The rear camera is integrated into this radar unit and rear facing camera. Now that I have protective film on here I haven't removed yet. And then the front camera looks like this. Now I don't have the cable plugged in at the moment, but there's a cable that goes in the back, and I have to put an SD card in here, which I'll do in just a second. Well, the instructions show a mounting option using this GoPro mount here, and they show using this little strap. This little strap did not come in my kit. I don't have it. That's the one piece that I needed. I got this strap, but that doesn't really help me. I needed this strap with the little fingers that come together so I can use a GoPro mount, but they did not include that in my kit. Now it says here brackets not included in the standard kit. I'm gonna have to contact them and find out how I can get one of those straps. So after spending quite a bit of time yesterday cursing because INNOVV did not include that little GoPro mount, that strap that would allow me to use a GoPro buckle style mount, I did some looking around of some of the parts they provide, and I discovered that they actually give you parts that can work in my case. So I've actually been able to use some of the parts they provide in the kit to come up with a way of mounting this front camera. That's what I was concerned about, was the front camera. I didn't know how I was going to mount it without that GoPro mount. But it turns out they do give you a lot of stuff here. And once I took the time and settled down and calmed down and looked through it, I thought, oh, I can make this work. So I'm going to take it apart. They provide you a couple of these little bases. These are sort of semi-flexible plastic bases, and these adhesive pads will go on the back of these, and these of course will stick to any plastic or any surface, metal, plastic, whatever. And they give you a lot of different screws and bolts. These are all like I assume they're metric. They're Allen head bolts, very nice hardware actually. And they give you a lot of these pads, but they do give you 2 of these little mounting bases. And they give you this little, I don't know what you call it, I guess a threaded block. And I was able to take some of these screws and washers and this block and this pad, and I was able to rig up something that looks like this right here. And this will work because I can put my adhesive pad on the back of this, and my plan is to mount this underneath the front, underneath the headlights, basically right above the front fender, and it will hang upside down, and it will of course face forward. But the nice thing about this is it gives me the ability to move it left or right. Now the problem with that is the screw is underneath the pad. So I could not, once I mount this, it's going to be pretty much set as far as the left to right orientation. But I don't think that's going to be a big issue. But after it's installed, I can still adjust it up or down because these screws on the left and right hand side will allow this camera to tilt. So that's a good feature. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this, and I'm going to show you what parts I used to create this front facing mount. So in case you're mounting this on a Honda Goldwing or any similar motorcycle with a similar type of a mounting problem or issue, you'll know how I did this. So let me take this apart and I'll show you what I did. So basically this is the camera. It is a cylinder. You can see the size based on how I'm holding it in my hand. You can get an idea how big it is. And they do give you in the kit this metal strap that in the instructions they don't show it being used this way, but I'm going to do it my way. It does fit around the camera barrel. That's the idea. But before we fit it around the camera barrel, we're going to install one of these little rubber strips. They do give you these in the kit. It's just a little 3M adhesive piece of rubber. It's flexible, and that will go on the inside of this ring. I've already installed it here. It may be hard to see on video, but that little piece of rubber is actually on the inside of this ring. And what that does is that increases or decreases the amount of, or increases the amount of friction, I should say, between the ring and this camera barrel. and so that when you do clamp it down, it will hold it tightly. So this just slips over the end of this barrel like that, and that's what's going to hold this camera in place. Now the camera will need to be oriented so that this button is in the up position. This is the I guess the top, you might say, of the camera, so that the orientation of the video you shoot is correct. But that's okay, because we can always turn this inside of this strap and, you know, get it level more or less. Since I'm going to have it mounted upside down, so it will actually be mounted like this on the motorcycle, I'm going to turn this so that this button is like right there pretty much. Now I may have to make some slight adjustments because the surface I'm mounting this to may not be perfectly level, so we'll take a look at that. And then the second piece that we're going to install is this little mounting block. Now I've gone ahead and installed it on this pad. Let me take it off and I'll show you what I did. So INNOVV actually gives you two of these little machined aluminum blocks, and they are threaded all the way around. So they're very handy and very easy to mount to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount that strap to each side of this block, and then I'm going to mount this block to this little mounting pad here. You know, I've already told you this is where the adhesive pad will go. So the screw will be underneath that pad, and then they give you a variety of bolts that you can install. Now I'm using the one that is just a little bit longer. It's let me show you. There's two different sizes they give you in the kit. They give you these two size screws, and the longer one is the one that's going to hold this mounting pad onto this block. It's very important that you get that right. Now what I'm going to do when I mount this to this block like this, it's threaded, so it's gonna mount all the way down. So we're basically going to mount this to this pad, and of course we'll tighten it down nicely, and then we will use I have the strap mounted, and this will just go like this on top here, and you can see we've got threads on each side. So now I'm going to use the shorter of those two screws, but what is very important is I'm going to make sure that I've got a washer. First I've got a lock washer and then a washer on each screw that goes into that block. Then I'm actually using the little Allen wrench that they give you in the kit. Okay, so there's one side in. You might be wondering why I use the washers on the outside of the strap. And the reason is because if you don't use the washers, you'll notice if you look inside this little block, when I put these two screws in from the sides, those threads come into that opening, and we want that longer screw to go all the way from the bottom to the top, and it impedes, it prevents, those threads will prevent that longer screw from going all the way up and tightening down. So what I had to do is use some washers, and when you put the washers in, it does not allow those threads, it kind of puts those threads out a little bit longer, or I'm sorry, a little bit wider, so that now that hole is completely unimpeded and that other screw can go all the way through. And that's why I used the washer and the lock washer. Otherwise they wouldn't really be needed. But just so you know, make sure you use washers on these, otherwise you won't be able to get that longer screw to go all the way up. So here I've got the rear radar dash cam unit, and this is the mounting system that I've rigged up using the items that come in the kit. You can see I'm using another one of these flat pieces here, these little pads, and of course we'll put the adhesive pad on here like this, and I will be attaching that to the back of the bike just above the rear fender, I'm using the traction accessory shelf from Traction Dynamics, and that is what I'll be attaching this to. If you don't have that product on your motorcycle, you could mount this upside down on the bottom of the trunk on your Goldwing if you have a Goldwing. If you have a different brand motorcycle, there's all different other ways you could mount this. I'm just showing you on a Goldwing. And so basically the product comes with this bracket that attaches to the back of the radar unit. I'll take this apart and I'll show you all the pieces I'm using. And when I mount it, it's going to be mounted flat like this, and I have a slight bit of rotation. You only have to have 10 degrees down. So you only have to move it down slightly. You don't have to really have it angled very much. So this should work fine. I did put a washer. I don't know if you can see it in there. There is a washer between this piece and the little mounting block. I used the exact same screws that I used on the front. These are the two shorter screws here, and this is the longer screw. Now this bracket is thick enough that I don't think I'm going to need a washer to prevent those threads from impeding on the middle screw, the center screw that goes up from the bottom. So I'm thinking the bracket itself is so thick it probably will prevent that. Here are the parts you're going to need. Now there is the bracket that goes on the back of the radar unit, which I've already semi-mounted. I haven't completely mounted it, but that comes in the kit, this little bracket right here. And then we're going to use another one of these little mounting blocks that are threaded. We're going to need an adhesive pad. We're going to need this little mounting plate, which is plastic, and it's, like I said, it's semi-flexible. So if you have a surface that's not completely flat, maybe like the top of the license plate light cover on a Goldwing, it's kind of curved, that would probably shape around it pretty nicely. I'm also using the little Allen wrench they gave us, and I'll be using one of the longer screws in the kit and two of the shorter screws, and then also this washer. So the first thing we have to do, or I'm going to do, is going to finish mounting this bracket to the back of the radar unit. And this bracket comes in the kit, and there are 4 holes, and there's several holes in the back of this radar unit, so I guess you could move it over if you needed to. If you needed to offset it, you could mount it. I'm mounting it right in the center of the radar unit, and then of course I've got my small screws here. Now they do give you a screwdriver in the kit that you can use. Okay, now that I've got the bracket mounted to the back of the radar unit, I'm going to install my little threaded block, and that goes right here. Pretty common sense how this goes in. You want to make sure the other threads are pointed down so that you can mount your plate. And I'm going to get 2 of my smaller screws. Now on these, I am not going to use the thread lock. And the reason is because, number one, I want to have the ability to do the adjustment, the vertical adjustment. I don't want it to be locked. And then I'm going to take my washer, and that provides just a little bit more clearance for that vertical adjustment up and down. And I'm going to put my longer screw in the bottom. Of course, you want to make sure that it goes into this recessed part so that you can put your adhesive pad over it. And then I'm going to, again, no thread lock on this because the adhesive pad is going to keep that screw in place. It's not going to be able to back out because it's got nowhere to go once that adhesive pad is on there. And that's on there really tight. So now you can see the mounting situation. I'm going to straighten that up just a little bit. So this is what our radar unit is going to look like. So our adhesive pad will go on like this. And we are ready to mount our radar unit on the back of the bike. The plan is to install this front camera like right up under here, off as far to the outside as I can get it. And the reason is because we don't want this front fender, when you hit a bump, you don't want it to hit the camera. You do not want to mount it in the center. If you mount this in the center, like right here, I can guarantee you when you hit a good bump, you're going to crack your fender. You might even ruin your camera. So we want to mount it as far over to this side. I could mount it on the side of this inner panel, but I don't know what kind of shadow this might create here, this edge. So this is where I had my previous camera mounted, and it seemed to work okay. I wish it didn't hang down quite so far, but it does. And the reason, my only concern would be is if I'm in a serious turn and I hit a bump. Like if this fender was turned to the right and you hit a bump, would it hit the camera? It's possible. It is possible. So there's no perfect way to mount this. Now you could of course mount it up here and then try to angle this camera down like that. And that would certainly keep it out of the way, but it would look a little ugly. I don't like the looks of that very much. So I prefer to just mount it right here off to the side as far as I can get it away from that front fender. So I have removed the middle cowl here on the left side. This is where the rear view mirror connects, and this is basically where the wire is going to come out for that little light. And we have to get that connector, it'll go down here pretty easily, but we've got to get it underneath this plastic right here and have it come out right here. So we're basically going to be trying to fish it through here, down through this little area. It's a very tight space, but I'm hoping that little connector will fit in between the plastic. So we'll see if we can't get that fished through. Okay, you can see I've got my masking tape around my little connector here. So let me see if I can get this to go down through this shelter and come out where I want it to. I'm using a 36-inch plastic cable tie as my fish, so you can fish it through with whatever method you like. It's only got to go about 18 inches maybe. You'll notice there's a bend in my cable tie, and I've purposely got it bending the direction to kind of keep it up next to this outer shelter. I did that on purpose, believe it or not. So let's see if this will go. I've just got to kind of go by feel. It's a very, very tight fit down here. There's not much room. Look over here, see if I can see anything. I don't see it. I see it, but it's not where I want it. Oh, there it is. It is right there. Okay, perfect. So my little connector came out. That's exactly what I wanted. Now, when you're running wires underneath the seat, you have to always be conscious of when you put the seat back on, is something going to get crimped or in a bind? I don't really like how this wire is sitting up above this piece of the structure here. So what I'm going to do, just to play it safe, is I'm going to take this bolt out right here. It's a socket bolt, 5mm. Is I can pull this shelter out just enough to drop that wire underneath and get it down lower so that I don't have to worry about it getting crimped. So let me see. Yeah, I can pull that out just enough to run that wire down underneath that. Okay, now the next thing I want to be cautious of is this is where the bolt goes in that holds the seat on. So if this wire were to
be up like that, you could very easily get that wire pinched in between that bolt and, of course, the frame that holds it on. So what I will do is, once I get this to the length I want it, I'm going to pull it out. I've got plenty of wire here to play with, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it through as much as I can. And once I get it where I want it, I'm going to zip tie or cable tie to the frame right here, and I will make sure that is cable tied to the frame so that it can't move and it won't actually pop up and get caught in that screw. So what I was able to do was to feed that little light inside this rubber boot so that the wire and the light come out at the same place as the connector for the front-facing turn signals, which are in front of the rearview mirror, and the Muth mirrors. The little connector there is for the Muth mirrors, and the larger connector is for the turn signals. I also zip tied it here to another cable I found in here just to keep it in place. So I've already reinstalled the middle cowl and the rear view mirror, and just as a reminder, if you want to know how to do that, I have a maintenance video series that goes into great detail about how to remove and install all of these body parts. I'm not going to get into that today because the video would be twice as long, but I do have videos showing how to do that. Now we're going to mount these lights to this little plastic piece of this arm on the rear view mirror. And the reason we're doing this is so that if we ever need to remove our rear view mirrors again to get access to the middle cowl, we can just simply pop these off on little magnets. They'll just hang there. We can get our work done. We don't have to, basically unwire everything each time. Now, if you're mounting these to any other motorcycle, you could just use the adhesive pads that come in the kit and mount them to your rear view mirrors. This is sort of a hack because we have a Honda Goldwing. We want to be able to pop these lights off if we need to, just in case we have to remove that rear view mirror. Before I attach my magnets, I'm going to clean all of the surfaces very good with this isopropyl alcohol just to make sure there's no grease. I'm also going to clean the back of the little indicator light before we install our magnets. Now these little magnets have self-adhesive backing as well. I'm going to put one on the arm and one on the light, and these are available at Lowe's. They're the perfect size. They fit these little indicator lights perfectly. So I'm going to stick one to the back of the left side indicator light. Make sure it's on there good and tight. Then I'm going to stick the other magnet to that magnet before I peel off the adhesive on the back of that magnet. And that way I know exactly where I'm going to be able to put this on that little rear view mirror arm. So I'll basically position it as close to the rear view mirror as I can get it. I'm going to press and hold this in place firmly so that all of those magnets get adhered to the surfaces. And here you can see I can easily pop that light off of that magnet. If I need to ever remove that rear view mirror, I don't have to disconnect any wires. I can just let that little light hang down. This is the connector for the camera. You can see the wire's a little bit thicker than what we have for the lights. And I'm going to fish it while I have the right side middle cowl off the bike. I'm going to go ahead and fish it just like I did the wire for the indicator light, and I'm going to fish it the exact same way to the exact same location. You can see I've got the middle cowl off. I want to remind you once again that if you want more detailed information on removing the middle cowl, removing the seat, removing the side covers, all the different parts and pieces, the rear view mirrors, that's all covered in my Honda Goldwing maintenance video series. Check them out. I'll put a link in the description down below. I'm expecting this particular installation probably cost you about $200 to $300 at a Honda dealer to have it installed. So that'll pay for the videos right there. Just buy the videos and learn how to do all this stuff, and that will more than cover the cost of your videos. But this wire for the camera is going to be going down into the, under the seat. So it's going to fish down the same exact way. And what I want to do is it will eventually end up over there. I don't know if you can see that daylight behind the radiator cap. That's where it's going to go, because that's where it gets to underneath the cowl right above the front fender. I should also mention that the next time I remove the top shelter for whatever reason, I will do a better job of tying these cables up. Let's see, oh yeah, there it is right there. So that it won't, you know, they won't just be dangling back there. But there's the cable, the connector for our front camera. Okay, I'm just going to show you how I decided to route these wires. I went ahead and cable tied the camera cable or wire to the rear view mirror light wire. I call that the rear view mirror light. It's actually the indicator light for the blind spot monitor. And I went ahead and zip tied those together in a couple of places just to keep them together. And I decided to route those up above this unit right here, because I don't want them down here. I don't want them in the way when if I need to remove the top shelter. There's a lot of little cables and connectors down here that you have to remove. I don't want to mess with it. Now, once I do remove the top shelter, I will come up with a better way of securing these wires. And then I've got the indicator wire. I've already got the magnet on there. I've got that one, just like before, I ran it through this boot and I zip tied it in with the Muth mirror to the harness from the bike, so it's not going to fall back into the shelter. And then the camera cable is running, or you can't see it because it's so dark back in there, but this is the wire. It's going kind of behind the radiator, so that way if I need to flush or, you know, add radiator, you know, coolant to do the radiator flush, it's not going to be in my way. And then it comes out down here. I've got plenty of room still to connect everything. So that's just how I routed everything on the right side of the bike. Now it's time to mount that rear camera and blind spot sensor. I'm going to clean the surface of this accessory tray with isopropyl alcohol, make sure there's no grease or wax or anything on there, or fingerprints. And using that little adhesive pad, I'm now mounting this. Now you'll notice I'm mounting it off to the right side of this accessory tray. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference, 1 inch either way as far as the sensor. It doesn't have to be directly in the middle of the bike. And this way I have more room on that accessory tray if I want to add an action camera later on or something else. And before I tighten those side screws, I am going to angle it down slightly. They say 10 degrees. I'm not sure what 10 degrees looks like, but I think it's going to work just fine. And I'm just going to tuck the wire up underneath the trunk for now. I'm not going to do a permanent installation of the wires. I just want to get it tucked up so I can get it up under the seat. Okay, so we've got the wire here coming up just underneath this speaker enclosure, as you can see back here. And we're just going to kind of come around this frame rail, and then we're going to eventually end up underneath this round frame bar. So I'm trying to find the best way. We don't want this to be on top of the frame, otherwise when you put the seat on, it's going to put it in a bind, it's going to crimp it. So there is an area, if I go down here next to the saddlebag, I can actually run this up here and grab it right here in between the frame and that passenger grab rail. I think that's how I'm going to choose to do it. And remember, I can always go back and reinstall this if I decide, you know, for a more permanent installation, because I would want to clean up that rear fender installation. Now, once we are under this bar, we're okay. We're good to go. Like right here next to this other loom that I have created, I just come down like this, and then I'll just go underneath this frame rail here, and I may actually zip tie to my loom here so that it's got a nice permanent installation. So when mounting this front camera, I'm planning to mount it right underneath here, but there is a screw up under here for this lower under windshield cowl, this black cowl. So I don't want to cover up that screw, and that's why I've decided to put this on horizontally, so that if I put it on the other way, it would probably cover up that screw. So this way I can still get access to that screw if I need to. I also need to consider, I need to be able to access these Allen bolts on the left and right in case I need to adjust the camera up and down. You can see it rotates up and down. But I'm going to try to get it as level as I can and get it as far over away from this fender as I can and as far forward to prevent any shadowing or anything coming from this shelter, from this middle cowl. So I'm trying to mount it kind of right on that front edge if I can. And the next thing we're going to do is just stick it on there. And then the next thing, well, before I do that, I'm going to put my SD card in. Let me go grab that. I'll put the SD card in, and then we will plug in the cable that we installed or routed earlier. Just enough room to get that Allen wrench in there to tighten these down. And if I have to, I can come back and loosen these, and I can rotate this camera within this strap if I need to get it more, to get the horizon correct. Now I did use Loctite on the main screw holding it to this base, but I've decided not to use it on these screws because I may need to loosen these and either rotate the camera or adjust it up and down. So this is what the front camera looks like after it's been installed. The way these work is you just slip your zip tie like this, your cable tie, and then you just put your cable through here, and then you tie it down and it will just hold it in place. Okay, let me show you what I ended up doing here. Unfortunately, this wire was coming down on the inside of this little panel. I wish I had put it over here between this panel and the outside of the bike, but I didn't. So what I did is I put a zip tie through these holes in this little cheese grater section, and I just pulled the cable up, and you can see kind of how it goes. And then I've got another zip tie here holding it up to the underside of this cowl. So let me show you how I've wired this up so far. I have not connected all of my different cameras and sensors and things, but I will show you what I have so far. This is the power harness that comes with the INNOVV, and this is the red is a hot wire. It comes with a ring terminal, and if you're going to mount this directly to your battery, you could use that ring terminal. I cut the ring terminal off, and I'm wiring it up to the hot terminal on my Pathfinder accessory hub. But if you're going to use it on your battery, you could just leave on that ring terminal. Same is true for the ground cable. This ground cable was, I'm sorry, that's not the ground cable. This is the ground cable down here. It's black. It also had a ring terminal. and I am wiring it to the ground. Hang on. I wired it up to the ground terminal on the accessory terminal on the fuse box. I just took the cover off the fuse box and I cut the ring terminal off. I didn't want to connect anything else directly to the battery because I've already got 2 or 3 things. So I cut the ring terminal off the ground and mounted it here to the bottom, which is the ground terminal on the accessory in your fuse box. And then this yellow wire is the accessory trigger. This is supposed to connect to the accessory terminal, which is basically a switched terminal so that it only gets power when the bike is turned on. And then up here on that red hot wire, I just used a inline Wago connector. And I'm going to take all of these wires for now, just for my temporary purposes, and I'm just going to kind of stuff them back here behind the gas tank just to get them out of the way. Now the only other wire coming out of this harness is the one that goes to the actual INNOVV unit itself, which is over here right now. I've got it sitting over here. Now all of these connectors, whether it be from a camera, whether it be from the front camera, rear camera, left indicator light, right indicator, they're all keyed. They'll only go in one way. You can't screw it up, basically. So as long as they match up, you'll find the correct connector for whatever it is you're trying to hook up. For example, on the indicator lights, you've got 2 here. And let me see if I can get the other one out here. I'll find it in a second. Here it is. Again, this is a temporary installation. You know this isn't going to meet my standards for neat wiring, but for testing purposes, it should work just fine. I'll end up looming all this stuff together at some point. That's just going to go down there, kind of behind the gas tank. This wire, I want it to come underneath here. And this is blue. See, they are color-coded, which is nice. So we'll do, the blue will go to the blue, obviously. And I like the way they've got these keyed, so you really can't mess it up. They're very good quality connections. So it has power now. Oh, that's nice. Well, that's loud. And now we've got the, I believe this is the front camera. So these are the 2 different connectors for those indicator lights, and you can see how they're different. One is a male, one's a female. So you really can't screw it up. Now I don't know which one of these is left and right, but I will once I look over here and get my wire so I can tell that is the male coming from the indicator light, the left side. So like I say, you can't really screw it up. They'll only go in, it'll only go together one way. Okay, I think we're all connected now. And of course, I'm going to put all of these eventually, they'll go underneath this fuel sensor here, which I think is the fuel pump power. I'll route all of this so it looks nicer. I'm just trying to get it connected right now so I can test it. I ended up putting the main unit on the left side of the gas tank. You can see it there between the frame rail and the gas tank. And then all of the little connectors kind of run right next to that frame rail. Now there's 2 wires that come from the right side of the bike. Here you can see I've loomed those together. That's the camera cable and the right hand blind spot monitor light. So this completes the installation of the RC6 from INNOVV. In the next video, I'm going to go into more detail where I'll review the product, show you how the blind spot monitors work, show you how the front and rear cameras work, and that will be in the next video. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. That really does help my YouTube channel. And I'll see you on the second part of this INNOVV RC6 video.